Hello students, welcome to today's video. In this video, we are going to learn about a new chapter, that is the chapter number 3 of class 12th biology, human reproduction. Let us start understanding the concepts related to this chapter by learning some of the basic concepts that you all might be aware of. Just to give you a brief recap, let us start with the basics. Now, the sex organs are specialized structures or organs that are associated with the process of sexual reproduction, both in case of male as well as females. Now, the term genitalia is also used to describe the sex organs. Now, whether you talk about the male or female, the sex organs are typically associated of the primary sex organ, otherwise known as the gonads, and the accessory sex organs. Now, the primary sex organ in case of male is the testis, that is the male gonad, and in case of female, the ovaries act as the primary sex organ or the female gonad. Now, there are two functions of the gonads. One, the gonads produce the sex cells, otherwise known as the gametes, that fuse to form a fertilized egg. The male gonad develops the sperm in the males, whereas in case of female, the female gonad develops the ovum or the egg. The second function of the gonad is that it also functions as endocrine gland, as they produce certain sex hormones. And these sex hormones play a vital role in the development, maintenance, and function of all the sex organs. Now, what are accessory sex organs? As we said, that sex organs in male or female consist of the gonads, that is the primary sex organ, and the accessory sex organ. Now, remember, accessory sex organs are all the sex organs except the primary sex organ or the gonads, that is genitalia other than the gonads of both the sexes, that is both in case of male and female. Now, the internal glands and ducts that nourish the gametes and transport them towards outside of the body, that is simply referred to the accessory sex organ. The second one, that is the external genitalia, that is also going to be referred to as accessory sex organ. So to summarize, the primary sex organs are the gonads, that is the testis and ovary respectively in the male and female, whereas all the other sex organ apart from the testis and ovary are going to be referred to as accessory sex organ, and some of them are the external genitalia and some of them are the internal glands and the ducts that are going to help in nourishing the gametes and transporting them outside the body. Now, gametes are specialized sex cells and they carry about 23 chromosomes. Now, this number is half of the number of chromosomes in a typical somatic cell. Now, remember, somatic cells, these are regular body cells. What do we mean by this? So, these cells are the regular cells, for example, the cheek cells, the muscle cells, that make up the entire body. And these cells have double the chromosome of these gametes. That is, they have 46 chromosome or 23 pair of chromosome. Now remember, in humans, the entire genome is fragmented into 23 parts. That is, chromosome number 1 to chromosome number 23. And in each of the somatic cell, each of this chromosome is present in pair. That is, they're going to have one copy from the father and one copy from the mother. That is, one paternal chromosome and one maternal chromosome. That's why they are typically referred to as diploid cell. So the somatic cells are in a diploid condition, whereas the gametic cells or the gametes are in a haploid condition. So during fertilization, what happens is the chromosomes in one of the gamete, right, one male gamete and one female gamete, that is the sperm and the oocyte, they fuse together and they give rise to the zygote. Now zygote is also going to be diploid, so they are also in a 2-end condition, and this is again a unicellular structure. Now the zygote later on develops into the embryo. So remember, the function, if we want to summarize, of the male reproductive system is two. One, produce the sperm, and the second is to transfer them from where? From the male body to the female reproductive tract. So the functions we can summarize is to produce the sperm and transfer them to the female reproductive tract. Now the gonads are the sperm producing testes which lie in the scrotum. Now we'll talk why are they present in the scrotum and why not inside the body in the abdominal cavity in a minute. The accessory sex glands, which empty their secretion into the sex ducts during ejaculation, are the seminal vesicle, prostate and bulbourethral glands. We'll see why are they important and what role each of these gland secretions play in the entire process of reproduction in case of human males. Now let us have a look at this particular diagram and let us understand what are the components or what are the organs and structures associated with the male reproductive system. Now the male reproductive system is consisting of a pair of testes, as you can see here, a pair of testes. Along with that, you have number of accessory ducts and glands, and there is going to be the external genitalia. Now when we talk about the accessory ducts, there are four, that is radiotestis, vasa efferentia, epididymis and vas deferens. Now in case of glands, again there are three as we said about, and these are the paired seminal vesicle. Remember, the seminal vesicles are present in pair. A single prostate gland and again a paired bulbourethral gland, and the external genitalia is the penis. So these are the structure that is going to constitute the human male reproductive system, that is a pair of testes, accessory ducts involving radiotestis, vasa efferentia, epididymis, vas deferens, glands, accessory glands including paired seminal vesicle, prostate gland and paired bulbourethral gland, and the external genitalia, that is the penis. Now the male gonad, that is the testes, they are typically located outside the abdominal cavity inside a pouch like structure called the scrotum, as you can see here, right? They are present in a structure called scrotum. Now the question is, why are they present outside the abdominal cavity? Why are they not present in the abdominal cavity itself? Now the reason for that is very simple. Now the production of the sperm requires around 2 to 2.5 degrees temperature lesser than the regular body temperature. So whatever your internal body temperature is there, for the production of the sperm, temperature required is slightly lesser, that is around 2 to 2.5 degrees. Now this condition cannot be provided inside the body, and that is why the scrotum is going to hold this structure, that is the testis, so that it can provide the necessary temperature for the process of spermatogenesis. Now the structure of the testis is going to be oval with a length of about 4 to 5 centimeter and a width of about 2 to 3 centimeter. Now the testis structure, let us understand a little bit in detail, and we'll understand where the sperms are actually produced and how are they produced in a minute. Now remember, each of the testes has around 250 compartments inside them, and these are called the testicular lobules, as you can see in this picture. Now each of this testicular lobule contains around 1 to 3 highly coiled structures, and these are called the seminiferous tubules. These are not there in this picture, I'll show you in a minute. And this particular structure, that is a seminiferous tubule, is important, very important, as this is a site where the sperms are actually produced. So to make you understand, let me switch to a different picture. So here you can see, now this particular structure, is the testicular lobule. As you can see, there are a number of these testicular lobules. Okay, number of these testicular lobules. How many are there? They are per each of the testes there are around 250 and odd compartments. That is called testicular lobule. The second structure that I was talking about, that in each of the testicular lobules there are going to be 1 to 3 highly coiled seminiferous tubule. So to understand, see, these are the coiled structure. These are the coiled structure. Around 1 to 3. So here you can see around 2 in each of these structures. See here 2, here also 2, here also 2. So there are around 1 to 3 highly coiled structures, and that is called the seminiferous tubule, and they are present in each of these compartmental like structure called the testicular lobule. Now the seminiferous tubules, if we zoom in again, and when we see a cross section of this under microscope, look something like what you are seeing on the picture here. Now the seminiferous tubules on the inside, so on the inner side, let me change the color to something probably, yes. So if I see on the inner side, this is the inner side. So in this inner lining, if I see, I can see certain structures. Now there are two types of structures on the inner linings. What are those? One of them is called the spermatogonia. As you can see here, these are called the spermatogonia, and these are the male germ cells. Now from here we are going to get the male gamete. So these are diploid, they will undergo meiosis at a later point of time. The second type of cells that we can see in the seminiferous tubule, the inner linings, are the Sertoli cells, as you can see here. Now the Sertoli cells are also important as they provide nutrition to the developing germ cells. So we are seeing two types of cells. One is called the spermatogonia, or the male germ cells, that will undergo meiosis to produce the sperm, and the second one is the Sertoli cells that will provide nutrition to the developing germ cells. Now the spaces that is outside, right, outside each of the seminiferous tubule, this particular space is called the interstitial space. This space is called interstitial space. Okay, and these contain the blood vessels as well as a very important cell that is called a Leydig cell or the interstitial cells. Okay, they contain the interstitial cells, or also known as the Leydig cells, and they're important as they're going to produce testicular hormone, otherwise known as the androgen. So they will produce a androgen or testicular hormone. Now we are back with this picture, and let us now understand what are the male accessory ducts. So till now what we understood? We understood how is the testis organized and how is the seminiferous tubule organized. Now let us understand the organization of the male accessory ducts. Now in this, the seminiferous tubules open into the vasa efferentia through the rete testis. So you can see here that these are the testicular lobules and these are the seminiferous tubules. Now what we are saying is the seminiferous tubule, now these opens to which structure? They open to the vasa efferentia. Remember, in this efferent ductule, this is nothing but the vasa efferentia. The seminiferous tubule opens to the vasa efferentia through this structure called the rete testis. So these structures are called the rete testis, as you can see here. In each of this case, they are opening, right? The seminiferous tubules, they are opening to the rete testis, and from the rete testis, it opens to the next structure called the ductules, efferent ductules, or the vasa efferentia. The vasa efferentia leaves the testis and open into epididymis located along the posterior surface of the testis. Now you can see here, these are the rete testis. They open into this particular structure called, right, in this area you have the vasa efferentia, and this vasa efferentia then opens to this structure called epididymis. The epididymis lead to the vas deferens that ascends to the abdomen and loop over the urinary bladder. So here you can see these are the structures that actually shows the epididymis. This particular part is the epididymis. This particular area is the epididymis. And from this epididymis, the next structure that connects is going to be the vas deferens, as you can see in here. So this is the vas deferens. So to summarize, you are going to have the testicular lobules, 250 of them in each of the testes. That is going to contain around 1 to 3 highly coiled seminiferous tubule. The seminiferous tubules open into the rete testis, that opens into the vasa efferentia. The vasa efferentia then connects to the structure called epididymis, and then it opens to the vas deferens. That is how the male accessory ducts are going to be organized. So let us move forward from here. The vas deferens receives a duct from the seminal vesicle and opens into urethra as the ejaculatory duct. Now, as we are saying, the vas deferens that is coming in this particular area, that is the vas deferens, that is going to connect, that is going to receive a duct from the seminal vesicle. It's a gland, right? Remember that. It's a paired gland, seminal vesicle, and it opens into the urethra as the ejaculatory duct. Now these ducts store and transport the sperm from the testes to the outside through the urethra. The urethra originates from the urinary bladder and extends through the penis to its exterior opening called urethral meatus. Now let us talk about the male external genitalia. Now it is made up of special tissue that is going to help in erection of the penis to facilitate the process of insemination. The enlarged end of the penis is called glans penis. This is the structure, as you can see here. The glans penis is covered by a loose fold of the skin, and that is called the foreskin. Now let us talk about the male accessory glands. We already have seen that they are of 3 different types. Now the sperms make up only 5% of the final volume of the semen. Now what is semen? Semen is basically sperm, right, along with the secretions from these accessory glands. So whatever the secretions are coming from these accessory glands, 3 of them, this along with the sperm together they constitute the semen. And semen is basically thick milky fluid, and that is going to be ejaculated from the male during coitus or copulation. Now the seminal vesicle is paired and it constitutes around 60% of the semen. It contains a large amount of fructose, and the fructose is important as it is used by the sperm mitochondria to produce the energy in the form of ATP. ATP is required by the sperm to reach the site of fertilization. Now the second structure is the prostate gland. Now the prostate gland secretes an alkaline milky fluid to the passing seminal fluid, and now it is called the semen. It contains various substances along with certain enzymes, and these together enhances the sperm motility. Now the third structure is the bulbourethral glands, or also known as the Karpus gland. Now this is also paired and it releases a thick salty fluid that is going to help in the lubrication of the penis during the sexual intercourse. Now let us talk about the female reproductive system. The female reproductive system, the primary role is the production of human female gametes and release of the reproductive hormones. But along with this, there is certain additional roles that is played by the female reproductive system, that is to support the developing fetus and also to deliver this fetus outside the world. Now the location of the female reproductive system is in the pelvic region. They are located inside, not outside. And the female gonad is going to be the ovary, and this gonad produces the oocyte, which is known as the female gamete. To start with, let us understand some of the structures that are associated in here. Now the female reproductive system is consisting of a pair of ovaries, certain accessory ducts and external genitalia. Now, when we talk about accessory ducts, there are four structures. That is, there is going to be association of a pair of oviduct, also known as the fallopian tube, the uterus, the cervix, and the vagina. These four structures, they represent the accessory duct in the female reproductive system. Now, here you can see certain portions of the external genitalia. Now, that includes the mons pubis, labia majora, labia minora, hymen, and clitoris. So, these structures, as you can see on the screen, represents all the female reproductive system. Now, along with all of these, there is an additional structure that work very closely with the female reproductive system, and that is the mammary glands, and together they are going to help in the proper development and sustenance of the child or the fetus. Now let us talk about the female gonad, that is the ovaries. Now these are the primary female sex organ, and they produce the female gamete, that is ovum, and also they are going to produce several steroid hormones, that are the ovarian hormones. Now they are present on each of the side of the lower abdomen, and they are around 2 to 4 centimeter in the length, and they are connected to the pelvic wall and the uterus by the help of ligaments. Now, as you can see here, these are the broad ligament, and these are the ovarian ligament that is going to connect the ovary with the structure in here. They're going to keep these ovary in place. Each of the ovary is covered by thin epithelium which encloses the ovarian stroma. Now, as you can see here, the stroma is divided into two zones, a peripheral cortex and a inner medulla. Now, the cortex is composed of tissue that forms the ovarian stroma, and it is important as this is the place where the oocyte develop. Right, so the oocyte develops within the outer layer of the stroma, each surrounded by supporting cells. As you can see, this one is actually the oocyte, developing oocyte, and outside these are called the granulosa cells, and these are the supporting cells. Now this group of oocyte, this grouping of an oocyte and its supporting cell is called a follicle. Now we'll see later on when we talk about the development of the female gamete, we'll talk about the primary follicle, secondary follicle, and we'll see how these are different from each other. So this is the female gonad or the ovary that you have to understand about. Now let us talk about the female accessory ducts. Now these, as we said, they are consisting of the oviduct or the fallopian tube, uterus, and vagina. Now let us start with the first structure, that is going to be the fallopian tube. Now each of this fallopian tube, as you can see here, this is basically the fallopian tube area. Now the fallopian tube is around 10 to 12 centimeter long, and they will extend from the periphery of each of the ovary to the uterus. As you can see here, they'll connect this structure right from the periphery of the ovary to the uterus, and they're divided into three parts. That is, at the periphery they are having the infundibulum, ampulla, and isthmus. Now the infundibulum is going to have finger-like projections towards that of the ovary, and they're important as they catch the oocyte during the ovulation process and then transfer it to the ampulla region. Now the infundibulum is funnel-shaped structure closer to the ovary, and the edges towards the ovary contains finger-like projection that is called the femori, as we talked about. Now the ampulla is the lesser wider structure connecting the infundibulum and the isthmus, and the isthmus is a narrow lumen that joins the uterus. Now the uterus is also known as the womb, and the shape is like an inverted pear fruit. Now this structure, the uterus, is supported by the ligaments attached to the pelvic wall. As you can see here, the broad ligament, they are going to help in attachment to the pelvic wall. Now the uterus opens into the vagina through a narrow cervix, and the cavity in the cervix is called the cervical canal. And remember, together that is this cervical canal and the vagina that is known as the birth canal. Now let us talk about the uterine walls and why are they important. What are the types and why are they important? Now uterine walls are of three types. One is called perimetrium, next is called the myometrium and the endometrium. The perimetrium is the external thin membrane and it consists of epithelial tissues, whereas the myometrium is the middle muscular thick layer and it is made up of smooth muscles, and they play a very important role during the delivery of the baby, and they exhibit strong contraction during the process of parturition or the delivery of the baby. Now the endometrium is the innermost layer. They are glandular in nature and they undergo cyclical changes during the menstrual cycle. If you remember that during menstruation, the inner lining of the uterine wall is shed and it is released in the form of blood and mucus from the female reproductive tract. There are two layers, that is the stratum basalis and the stratum functionalis. Now remember, of these two, that is a base, the stratum basalis is like the base and the stratum functionalis is the outer part. So of these two layers, it is the stratum functionalis that gets shed during the menstruation, whereas the stratum basalis remains as it is. They do not get shed. It is the. Now let us talk about the female external genitalia. Now again, you just need to know the basics. Now they are consisting of the mons pubis, labia majora, labia minora, hymen and clitoris as we discussed earlier, and together we can refer this as the vulva. The mons pubis is a cushion of fat tissue covered by skin and the pubic hair, outer structure. Labia majora is the fleshy folds of the tissue which extends from the mons pubis and surrounds the vaginal opening. Now the labia minora is a paired fold of tissue under the labia majora. So you're coming from outside towards the inside, remember that. So it protects the female urethra and the entrance of the female reproductive tract, that is the labia minora. The hymen is the opening of the vagina, is often covered partially by membrane, and the hymen is often turned during the first coitus or intercourse. Many times the hymen is associated with the virginity of the female or the sexual experience of the female. Now that is not true, because many times the hymen gets ruptured during physical activities like cycling or certain other physical activities, and in some of the other female the hymen persists even after the coitus. So this should not be treated as an indicator for the sexual experience of the female. The clitoris is a tiny finger-like structure that lies at the upper junction of the two labia minora above the urethral opening. So these are the female external genitalia that you have to understand about. The last structure that we will talk about in this particular part is the mammary gland. The pair of mammary glands are integrated structurally and functionally with the female reproductive structures to support the process of ovulation, fertilization, pregnancy, birth and childcare. Now it consists of glandular tissues and variable amount of fats. Now the glandular tissue consists of 15 to 20 mammary lobes, and each of the mammary lobe contains a cluster of cells that is referred to as the mammary alveoli or alveolus. Now this alveolar cells, they secrete milk, and this milk gets stored in the lumen of the alveoli, the space or the cavity of the alveoli. Now the alveoli opens into mammary tubules. Number of these alveoli opens into mammary tubules, and number of these mammary tubules together they form the mammary duct. Now the number of mammary ducts together form the mammary ampulla that again opens into the lactiferous duct. As you can see in the image, it is through the lactiferous duct that the milk is sucked out by the child. So this is what you have to understand with regards to the mammary gland. So I hope you have understood the structural organization of the human male reproductive system and the female reproductive system. You have seen the different primary sex organs, that is the gonads, and the accessory sex organs including the ducts, glands, and the external genitalia, both in the male and female, and also an understanding on the structural organization of the mammary gland in the female. We will continue the next concept of gametogenesis in the next video. Thank you all for joining. Have a great day.